Alrighty, folks, it is time to buckle up. It looks like President Trump is playing with the idea of potentially sending out more Stemi checks. Yes, there is talk of us using the tariff revenue for stimulus checks. These stimulus checks could be as small as $1,000 or upwards of $2,000. Folks, all I got to do is ask you, what happened last time? If you remember last time, folks, when people got Stemi checks, what did they do? They spent it. We are a consumer-driven country, and if you give people free money, they're going to spend it. And we all know what happens after that. The biggest story of stimulus checks is the rich got richer. The rich got richer. We may have bought more stuff. We may have gotten that bag, those shoes, that watch, but the rich got richer. We don't need to test this theory anymore. If you print money, you give it away, it ends up consolidating with the ultra wealthy. On top of that, we have news that OPEC is going to be increasing output. We have gold setting records, silver setting records, and yes, Bitcoin just set a record. Are we seeing the beginnings of a melt up? Are the fact that asset owners win, and if you don't own assets, you lose? Are we learning this once again? Folks, at the end of the day, we also need to remember that the Fed is flying blind, and they have an important Fed meeting later this month. So let's talk about the government shutdown. I actually think, so we're recording this live on October 6th, Monday, October 6th. There is a vote in Washington today that could potentially remove the government shutdown. The government shutdown could, and I would argue, should be over today. Here's the deal. I believe if the Democrats once again do not vote for a clean CR, continuing resolution, and the government shutdown continues this week, I suspect President Trump is going to get increasingly petty. He is going to take action, and he's going to make it very uncomfortable. So that is why I suspect, I hope, dare I say, pray that the government shutdown ends today and we can go about running our country. But if it doesn't shut down, we've got to remember that the Fed is going to be relying increasingly on private data. So one of the things I've done in the last 24 hours is dug into the horrible ADP report. Remember, folks, the ADP report from last week showed a negative 32,000. The previous month also being revised to a negative 3,000. This is not a good trend, but I actually think it's worse than that. If you go to the numbers behind the numbers, right before the headline, small companies with less than 49 or less than 50 employees, lost 40,000 jobs. If you go to what they call medium companies, which would be 50 to less than 500, they lost 20,000. So the largest part of our economy, small and medium-sized businesses, lost 60,000 employees. The only reason it wasn't that bad is the big companies, again, with greater than 500 employees, added 33,000 jobs. This is not good U.S. economy. If only the big are growing and adding headcount, that really leads to a recession. The largest part of our economy is small and medium-sized businesses. And if they are struggling, we are all struggling. I was part of Bigger Pockets event yesterday. Got to listen to Chris Voss, author of Never Split the Difference, former FBI chief negotiator, had some great stories. I took this one bullet point that I wanted to share with you just to give you a little mental hack. He did this big, long story about somebody learning a native language, Spanish, I believe. But basically, the idea was that mistakes are learning accelerators. So again, what I think this means to you, what this means to me is welcome the mistakes. In fact, the more mistakes you occur, the more lessons you learn, and the faster and more efficient you will get at it. I thought Chris Voss was a wonderful keynote speaker. Of course, obviously, I am looking forward to Dion's talk tomorrow. If you are in Bigger Pockets, I will be speaking today at 2 o'clock in Vegas. So if you're there, come by, say hi. We can take some pictures. Again, I will be speaking at 2 p.m. At Caesar's Palace. So come through. Let's talk about some Fed speak. We got Moran, Jefferson, and Logan. We'll go bottoms up this time. We'll start with Logan. Right now, the Fed is furthest away from the inflation side. Remember, folks, when we get to the Fed speakers, we're trying to figure out who's who in the zoo. So Logan is telling us that, again, he more focused on inflation. Policies today is modestly restrictive. Okay. And we really need to be cautious about further rate cuts. We are starting to see, I think, more and more Fed presidents want to kind of pause or push off rate cuts. How about Fed President Jefferson? The Fed will hit its 2% inflation target. You know, you haven't hit it in 4 years, right? It's been 4 years since you hit 2%. So, you know, you'll eventually hit it. That's probably true. You'll eventually hit it, but eventually could be a long time away. We shall see. We will be informed going into the October meeting, basically saying the government data blackout won't be an issue. We will find the data somehow, somewhere. Again, I think it will be private data, just like the ADP report. And then finally, Fed President Moran. Remember, Moran is a nominee from Trump, filling in for a little stopgap measure. I expect housing costs to ease as immigration shifts. Interesting. The Fed has plenty of space to cut rates. Zero lower bound is a long way off. I don't think it's any secret that Moran is the most dove of doves. He is talking 50 basis point cut. In fact, Moran's talking a series of 50 basis point cuts, just to put it out there, see who we can drag over to his opinion. And finally, policy is much more restrictive this year than last year. That is interesting. One of the things that I'm finding interesting, and people are starting to talk about homeowners who have mortgages below 4%. For the longest time, you and I have talked about lock-in. What we are starting to find, and I think it is interesting, is homeowners who have mortgage rates below 4%. Do you know what they're doing? They're increasingly buying new construction. Now, why would they do that? Well, they can get a 3.99, a 4.49, a 4.99 mortgage. So again, we are seeing this lock-in start to crack. We are having folks who have existing homes simply buying new construction. I thought that was interesting. Paul Tudor Jones is making some noise today. Paul Tudor Jones, legendary Wall Street investor, saying the ingredients are in place for a massive rally before a blow-off top. Now, of course, Paul Tudor Jones is really leaning into this melt up. I don't know if you've seen gold this morning. Record. Bitcoin. Record. Silver. Record. This is happening. But again, Paul Tudor Jones does warn that eventually this could lead to a blow-off top. Paul Tudor Jones goes on to say, for you Bitcoin fans, Bitcoin is one of the biggest winners of this market. Digital gold is appealing. I do want to let you know about a very, very important Sunday session inside school. Something I've decided to do inside school is I'm going to give my community my How to Get Wealthy presentation. This is a presentation I will have now given 3 times. I'm going to share it with the school community. We're going to go through it a little bit slower. We're going to do it 8:30 a.m. on Sunday. Again, the school community will be able to ask questions. We'll be able to interact during the presentation. So again, 8:30 a.m. on the calendar. I put it in there this morning. We are going to go through my How to Get Wealthy presentation. This is, again, a version of the presentation I will be giving today at 2 o'clock at Bigger Pockets Caesar's Palace. Let's congratulate 2 more members that joined yesterday. Thank you, Omid and Ricky. Omid and Ricky, thank you for joining. Make sure you introduce yourself, and we will get going from there. Looks like UK and Europe lenders are leaning in to extend and pretend. These particular lenders, and likely in the US as well, are basically saying asset prices in office and other are so bad, they do not want to induce fire sales. Fire sales would lead to large losses. UBS flags Miami as the world's most vulnerable housing market. And folks, I want to stress the world's more vulnerable than Tokyo and Singapore and any other city on the planet. Yes, UBS says, watch out if you are in Miami. Mortgage rates have gone the other directions. Mortgage rates seemingly 3 weeks ago were 6.1. They are now 6.3. That little mortgage refi boom, rate and term that people got lucky. I hope you took action. If you like it, lock it. It is now gone. But will it come back? We shall see. I did read a report about luxury home sales. So this again is transactions. Transactions are actually slowing down. For the longest time, I've been reading reports that the only part of the housing market that was moving was luxury, aka a million plus. But after the last 90 days, they're now saying that even that part of the housing market is slowing down, falling almost 1%. Last thing we'll talk about, actually, we'll do 3 more things. Online holiday sales. Online holiday sales are expected to increase 5.3%. Folks, we have people out there thinking that the economy is in a recession, is falling apart, but yet holiday sales are expected to jump 5.3%. Is this maybe just the top 10% doing all that spending? Maybe. In fact, holiday spending online, let me stress that word, online holiday spending is expected to be $253 billion. 253, that's $250 billion on the holidays. Crazy. Looks like OpenAI and AMD are striking some kind of deal. AMD stock spiked this morning. And then finally, we've got a deal in banking. Fifth Third is buying Comerica Bank for $10.9 billion. Yes, folks, all stock deal. Folks, I hope you have an amazing day. If you are in Vegas and at the Bigger Pocket events, do me a favor. Make sure you look up Dion, Matt, and I. And don't forget, the person who takes the most selfies with Matt, the lumberjack landlord, is going to get a gift. So if you're in Vegas and you get a chance to take a selfie with Matt, do it. You have to post it on Instagram. Tag me. Tag one rental at a time. If you tag one rental at a time and you have the most selfies, I will make sure you get an autographed book. And again, let's celebrate the lumberjack. Let's make him famous. Lumberjack landlord. Let's get all those selfies going. All right, folks. Take care of yourself. Again, if you're in Vegas, I'll be heading there now, or Caesar's Palace now. I'll see you guys soon. Later.